Hey, if you're juggling a busy schedule and a furry friend who loves a good bath, you're probably looking for something that just works, something reliable, easy to live with, and worth every penny, not just a gadget with a long feature list. I get that hesitation. You've probably tried the usual towel dry routine, maybe even a handheld hairdryer, and you're thinking, will this actually save me time and mess? Or am I just buying another piece of equipment that sits in the corner? Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. So let's break down exactly who the JirPet 170-liter pet dryer box makes sense for, where the value really lives, and where it might fall short. First off, the JirPet dryer box is marketed as a professional drying cabin, and that label can feel a little vague until you picture how it fits into a real household. Imagine you've just finished a grooming session, maybe a full wash, a brush, and a quick trim. You're left with a dog that's still dripping, and the typical next step is a battle with towels, a blow dryer, or a long waiting period while the fur air dries and you're left cleaning up a wet floor. The JirPet claims to eliminate that mess by pulling the moisture out in a controlled airflow, and the multi-layer safety system is supposed to keep the air temperature gentle enough not to scorch sensitive skin while still moving enough air to speed up drying. One of the biggest practical strengths here is the drying magic on autopilot feature. The unit has 3 separate chambers, each with its own airflow pattern. In practice, that means you can place a medium-sized dog in the middle section and the system will automatically adjust the airflow so that the fur dries evenly from top to bottom. That's a noticeable time saver. In the reviews that are out there, people mention that a typical 30-minute bath can be reduced to about 1,012 minutes of drying, which translates directly into less water on your floors and less time you spend wrestling a shivering pet into a towel. For anyone who runs a home grooming business, or simply has a large breed that takes forever to dry, that reduction in turnaround time is the core of the value proposition. Now, let's talk about the powerful, soothing pet-friendly airflow. The unit spins a fairly robust fan, but the design includes a diffuser that spreads the air more gently across the coat. If you've ever tried a conventional hairdryer on a dog, you know how startling the noise and heat can be. The JirPet's airflow is described as soothing, and in actual use the sound level sits around the same decibel range as a typical household fan, not a vacuum cleaner, but not whisper quiet either. If your pet is skittish with noise, you'll want to test the unit first, but for most dogs and cats the sound is tolerable enough that they settle in after a minute or two. The multi-layer safety system is another selling point that deserves a practical lens. The dryer has an internal temperature sensor, a mesh guard that prevents the fan blades from contacting the pet, and a backup shutoff that engages if the airflow drops unexpectedly. Those 3 layers are meant to give owners peace of mind, especially when you're not watching the pet 24/7. In my own experience with similar devices, a single safety layer like an overheat cutoff can save you from a fire, but the added mesh guard also prevents hair from getting sucked into the motor, which is a common maintenance headache. For a pet owner who isn't a mechanical tinkerer, that built-in protection reduces the likelihood of a costly repair down the line. Of course, no product is without its trade-offs. The first practical weakness is the footprint. At 170 liters, the cabin itself measures roughly the size of a small wardrobe. That means you need a dedicated spot in a garage, utility room, or a large bathroom. If you live in a tight apartment, the unit might be more of a storage problem than a solution. The unit also requires a standard 110V outlet, but it pulls a decent amount of power, around 1,200 watts, so you'll want to make sure your circuit can handle it without tripping a breaker. I've seen a few owners mention that they needed to allocate a dedicated line to avoid occasional power flickers during peak usage. Another hidden trade-off is the cleaning routine. The effortless controls and zero-mess cleanup claim sounds promising, and the reality is that the interior does have a removable tray that catches water and hair. You'll have to empty that tray after each session, and the mesh filter should be brushed out weekly to keep airflow optimal. It's not a daily chore, but it's an extra step that some users might overlook, especially if they assume the system is completely hands-free. Skipping that maintenance can lead to reduced drying efficiency and, over time, motor strain. The price point sits in the mid to high range for home grooming equipment, and that's where a lot of the decision-making hinges. If you're a casual pet